got this person in my world, Kath, who from the minute they are awake, their phone is in their hand. They watch shows in the bathroom. They go and make the coffee and watching the show. They have their breakfast, watching the show, get ready for work, watching the show, get in the car, choosing the music that they're listening to, get to work, work all day, come home, and the show re-begins. And I have noticed this and thought, I feel like there's going to be a problem at some point. And anyway, said person came to me and said, I have so much anxiety. I'm feeling so stressed, but there's nothing wrong. And I just sat there and I was just like, oh, here we go. I don't want to say I knew it and saw it coming, but hey, we all do this, right? We all get caught
Yeah.
up and we feed ourselves from the minute we wake up till the minute we go to bed, and we wonder why we're feeling anxious or stressed or we can't think straight. We don't know what to do, yada, yada. Can you relate?
Not only can I relate, but as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, and this has become, I think it's become so normal in a way.
Yes.
I was just earlier on in the week, I was out and about in town. I needed to run some errands, and I was just had a moment to wait for hubby to come and fetch me because we were in one car. And I was at a park and just had a moment to just observe what was going on around me. And I um, noticed that there was this one lady, and she was sort of sitting back in the chair, in her chair, and just observing,
Mm.
her surrounds. And it almost looked like she was the odd person out because everybody else there
Yes.
was connected to a device.
Head down.
And,
Yeah.
it was almost like that's now become like not normal,
Yes.
like what's wrong with you? You're not
Yeah.
connected to a device. You're not
Yeah.
reading something. You're not listening to something. You're not. And she just seemed to be enjoying the sun and the surrounds and the nature. And yeah, I almost felt a bit like I was intruding just by observing
Watching
her.
her. That's
But
so
yeah,
funny.
no, so I think it's interesting how much as a society
Yeah.
it's become the norm to,
Yeah.
as you say, constantly feed ourselves.
I know. I was even getting on a plane fairly recently, and my husband was beside himself that I wasn't taking a crossword. I would never take a crossword. That's just never going to be me. That I wasn't going to be doing anything on the plane. I was actually just going to sit, and I was excited to sit and just look out the window. And he's like, no, you got to do something. I'm like, no, I do something every moment of every day. I just want, and he was
Yeah.
just blown away because I'm also, now I read the room. I'm not going to talk to the person next to me if they don't want me to talk to them, but I will say hello.
Okay.
And if, I've made friends on an airplane, but
Yes.
um, there is something, and I've noticed though that even over the years, I've become a lot more attached to my device. And I've noticed this and become aware of it. When I go into the prison one day a week, we can't have our phone on us, of course. And so
Yes.
if we have a moment where we don't need to be speaking with someone, where we're sitting waiting, in the lunchroom, normally, like, what do you do when you're in a waiting room or something? You jump on your phone. There's
Yes.
there's none of that. And so you feel almost a little bit naked without your phone. I'm like, oh, I've gotten it quite attached to my device as well. And so I really am not surprised in the world today, the research will show that people have way more anxiety and their stress levels are through the roof more than
Yeah.
ever, more than any other time on the planet, right? And there could be many factors, I think, and we're not going to start talking about this today. I
Yes.
think processed food, I think there's lots of different factors in this room
Yeah.
to do with
Yeah.
this problem. However, we have lost the art of being still and being
Yeah.
calm. And I really, really believe, and the research is showing that it is becoming quite an epidemic. It's quite a problem in today's society.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because it's I love that you say we've lost the art of being still, it's
Mm,
quieting our inner person
mm,
and just finding that stillness because you might be tuning in and listening and perhaps you're thinking, gosh, if only I had all the time to kind of be on my device, because sometimes there's seasons in life and there's
Mm.
seasons as a mum, and oh gosh,
Oh.
you've had 5 children, I've had two, but seasons when you just really are running from one thing to the next thing to the next thing as a
Mm.
mum, with all the backwardsing and forwardsing and
Mm.
chores and sports and everything else going on. So there are seasons in life that life is busy, but I think what we're recognizing is that for many of us, and myself included, I've had times
Mm.
where you catch yourself that when there is a moment uh, that presents itself where you could be still and quiet,
Mm.
we find that quite awkward and seem to want to fill it quickly by going to our device or
Whatever it is.
whatever it is. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I heard it said, I can't remember who said it, something along the lines of we get the greatest ideas or the best ideas we get is when we're in the shower. And so he
yeah,
said the solution isn't to have more showers. The solution is to find time to be still and stop feeding
yeah,
ourselves. So I think this is a really great conversation for today because I know that there are days and times where I've forgotten to be and just, and then you go to bed and you're still feeling the energy of the day
yeah,
rather than, and then it's hard to sleep. It creates all of these flow on problems. And I think it's really good for us today to look at and go, okay, well, what is being still? Like, why should we even, like, what is this? And what can I guess, look like? Because we know that our body, like, we're made up, we've got our thoughts, we've got our heart, but there's something deeper than all of that.
yeah. Well, it's reminding me that, I've learned before that we've had, we are a three-part being ourselves. So we've
Yeah.
got our bodies,
Yeah.
and then we've got our soul, and our soul is made up of our mind, our will, and our emotions. And then
Mm,
we've got our spirit.
yeah.
And just as it is important, and we all know it's important to look after your body,
Yeah.
what you put in, the exercise we do, all those bits about keeping a healthy body. It's just as important to be aware that there are things that we can do intentionally to look after our soul
Mm,
as well, which are, and we talk about this all the time, what are we
yeah.
thinking? Where are we focusing our thoughts? Are we aware of what we can control and can't control? And, all those things.
Yeah.
And then there's the spirit side of it as well, which I
Mm,
think for a lot of people, it's a confusing topic. It's maybe a don't go there topic. I mean, there's a lot at the moment available on mindfulness and spiritual practices and all of
mm,
that. But I think yes, it's one thing to know about these things and to have a thought of, is this the latest fashionable thing to do, or is this
mm,
maybe, what I should be doing? But to actually, I think what you're alluding to here is what are the side effects or the implications if we just ignore the
mm.
spirit world, or if we just ignore our minds and how we look after our soul,
Yeah,
and just keep on going without
100%.
stopping to think of these,
Yeah,
other parts of us. Like
yeah,
what is the problem with that?
yeah. What is it? So, there are days in my life where I will forget to do these kind of things, right? Where I'll
Mm,
forget to
mm,
stop because it's just the day's been distracting. There's lots of people in
mm.
my world, lots of problems arose, lots of places to be. I didn't get dinner cooked till 9 o'clock at night, cleaned up, and I'm
Yeah,
just in bed. And that was just it, I forget. What's the implication over a period of time? The ability to think, the ability to see our future, to have a hope, to have joy, to have like all of this becomes at risk for our life because we are so consumed with what we're feeding ourselves. And so
yeah,
the depressed state, the anxious state is very, very accessible to any person here today if we're not taking the time to be still. I know so many people in my world who will say to me, Ali, I'm really anxious. I'm really
Yeah.
stressed. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me about that. Tell me, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What's going on? What's the story you're telling yourself? What are you doing about it? And you know,
Yeah.
the very thing that's often missing in their world is the ability to sit and be. It's almost like we're afraid of the thoughts that will come
Yeah.
when we're calm and quiet. Um, but it's risky business to not sit and be still.
Yeah. And as I'm listening to you, yes, absolutely, I agree 100% with the people that I see often who, verbally will say they're anxious or they feel
Mm.
stressed. But I think also how often I hear people also sharing that perhaps they feel lost.
Oh, yes.
Like how many mums get to, like late
Midlife
40s or
crises and yeah.
yes, yes. And because life has been so busy,
Yeah.
giving and supporting and being there for everyone. And, if we haven't known to take these moments to just be still and to reflect and check in with how are we doing and who am I even and who do I want to be? Like it's no wonder we get to a stage in life where we think I don't even know who I am anymore.
Yeah, agreed.
So there's an identity crisis too that happens, I think, if we don't pay attention to those moments in the day where we can be still and a bit
Absolutely.
reflective. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know I've said it before on the podcast where I was sort of having an identity crisis, and my girlfriend said to me, "Oh, by the time you're 50, you'll have it all worked out." And I remember thinking, I don't want to wait till I'm 50 to have this all worked out. Like, seriously. But it was because I was just so caught up in the day to day. And I did have some spiritual practices way back then. I did spend time, in prayer and reflection, but I was just very much more caught up in the day to day. And then just
Yeah.
one day I kind of woke up and I thought, I don't even know what I believe, what I like, what my values, like I didn't know the word values back then, but I didn't
Yeah.
know who I was. 100%, I was completely lost. And
Yeah.
I really believe that taking the time every day can help to alleviate a lot of that.
Yeah, and I think you're right with that. And I think it isn't about going on a silent retreat or, you know, taking
That
out
would be
hours of,
impossible. I would
you know,
fail, big fail at a silent retreat.
oh, for sure. And it's even not about, I think, massive chunks of time.
No.
And, I think often why, I'm speaking from, from our own, I think for myself here and from our own experience, but sometimes why we don't do things that we know are good for us is because we haven't yet stopped to reflect on is this really what I want? And what will this really give me? And so
Mm,
I think when we haven't recognized the importance of something,
mm.
just trying to do something like, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, oh yeah, good idea to try and be still and someone else has sort of said that's a great idea. Like that, we know from the research into human behavior and what makes sustainable change possible is like that's not enough, just to know about something and to think, oh, that sounds like a good idea, I'm going to try. I think it's really digging a little bit deeper and recognizing where you are now in your life,
Mm,
with regards to a sense of inner peace and joy and inspiration and all those things versus anxious and lost and stressed and confused about things. And then asking the question that is so hard to answer, but it's like, what do I really, really want? And
yeah.
where do I really want to be? And how important is it to me to not do anxiety, or
Yeah.
to have more peace? And I think that's the first question that needs to be answered is, for us as an individual, for everyone, like what do I want more of in my world?
Yeah.
And why do I want that? And why is that important?
Mm,
Because when that's clear, then and when we, and sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom
yeah.
in the anxiety and the stress
Yeah.
and for us to actually stop and take notice and go, oh gosh, you know what? I don't quite know how I got here, but I know that I don't want to be here anymore. I know I want something to
Mm,
change. I want something to be different. Um, and you know, that's, I think, a lot of people's truth. It's been my truth. I've made the biggest changes in my own world when I've actually first waited to to hit rock bottom. And you
Yeah.
kind of note to self, don't do this again. But
Never
next time
again.
around,
Yeah.
same scenario happens.
Yeah.
But I think the conversation around, I mean, I'm hearing you, Al, absolutely. It's important. Those moments,
Mm.
those, and they can be micro moments in the day. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
complicated to slow down and be still and reflect. And I think just to encourage someone, if you're listening and you think, I don't even know where to start with that. And I think sometimes in the slowing down, as you said, we fear what thoughts are going to come and where we're going to end up. But I think if
Yeah.
we gift ourselves these moments to slow down and be still with the question in mind, okay, so what do I need right now? What
Mm.
do I want right now? What's my heart longing for right now?
Mm.
Because that
Mm.
kind of gives direction
To
to
your thoughts.
that
Mm.
stillness. Yeah.
Mm.
Rather than, because it's so easy to be still, to slow down and be still, it's just a flood of everything that's not right.
Yeah.
Now, our brain goes into and we end up with those looping, ruminating. Oh, what is she going to think? And what did I say? And why did I
Yeah.
say it like that? And why
Next
didn't
minute
I
you're
say
at
this like that? And
rock bottom
yeah,
again just because you were still for a
yes,
moment and listened to your thoughts. Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Our
yeah,
thoughts need to go. Like, I think it's important, as uncomfortable as this is, for us to be curious within our own thoughts. We do need to let them kind of go for a moment, because how do we know what we're thinking if we don't allow our thoughts to
yeah,
go there? But when we realize where they're going, our thoughts aren't us. They don't control us. They're a part of us, but
yeah,
we can control them. We can direct them however we want. It takes being intentional. It takes an awareness. But the moment we do that, if we're sitting and being still, feeling uncomfortable, and we are struggling, there are so many things we can start to do to be intentional, to redirect our thoughts, to allow us to stay in that space for your micro moment. I love that you pointed that out. It doesn't need to be for an extended period of time. Um, but by being intentional, we're redirecting it. And in fact, you're rewiring your brain. Every time we
yeah,
do that, it is rewiring our brain to think and to behave in a different way, and to for us to realize we're safe. When we're uncomfortable, we still can be safe. And so to
yeah, yeah,
redirect us and help us to feel safe and sit in that moment, it can be life changing. I'm absolutely convinced of it.
yeah, yeah. So what would you well, I'm curious to know what you
Yeah.
have said when this person in your world came and said, I'm so anxious and like, I mean, I know as coaches we don't like to give advice, and it's more,
Mm,
we get curious and ask questions. But
mm,
if you were to encourage someone
mm,
towards a change,
mm.
yeah, what was your
Yeah, well, I had a little chuckle because it was so funny, because this person had come to mind that the very day, and I had realized what was going on in their world, and I was kind of almost like I was not waiting for the moment for them to say, "Hey, Al, I'm feeling really stressed out."
yeah,
But I kind of was, because I could see it happening. From outsiders looking in, we can see the red flag. So when this person came to me, I just had a little chuckle and I said, you know what? You are on my mind today.
yeah,
And you're on my mind because I realized that this is what your day looks like. And when I unpacked the day, I said, this is what I see.
mm,
And they just stopped and smiled. They said, yeah, you're right. And I said,
yeah,
okay, so what can you do about it? What would you like to see different? And we to and froed a fair bit of times about what it
yeah,
could look like, and the nervousness. Like, I think the younger generation are very nervous about being present because they're not used to it.
yeah,
Like, from a young age, they're just not used to being present here and now and just with themselves. A lot of people
yeah,
haven't done that. And so we talked a bit about that, but I definitely didn't say what needed to be done. I just pointed out what I had observed, and you could see
brilliant.
the little flickering of the eye, and you could almost feel and hear and see the mind ticking, and they were just like, you're right. And I said, so what do you want to
Yeah,
do? What can it look like? This is what, I've seen work for me. This is what I
yeah,
have seen and read. that works, what are you going to do? And so we had a little, jot down of ideas, and we'll see what
What comes up?
transpires.
I just love that, and I love that because we research also definitely shows that we can be told there's a whole lot of stuff that's good to do,
100%.
versus pausing and figuring out for yourself what is the desire of your heart. How would you like things to look rather? What would you like to
Mm,
do? And there's way more evidence that, when we follow the own desires of our heart and what would we like things to look like,
mm,
that's way more effective than taking advice from somebody else and doing, what they've been told. But I still think that perhaps, this is such a great conversation, and
mm,
um, the the practice of quietening and being still, and I suppose the word that comes to mind is tapping into sort of the more spiritual side,
mm.
is it's quite an intangible and can be quite a confusing
Yeah,
topic. And I'd love for us to perhaps take this conversation further into our
agreed.
next week and just share a bit of insight, not from a point of, oh, this is the instruction, this is
And this
what
is
to
what
do
you should do.
do, but more of a like, what are the kinds of things? So if you're listening and you're thinking, oh well, it all sounds well and fine, but I'm a bit confused about what that could even look
Mm,
like. I
mm.
think that's worth unpacking a bit more.
Yeah,
Um,
agreed.
because I think we also know this concept, that it's really difficult to just stop something. It's what do we swap it with?
Hmm.
And even more difficult when we're trying to stop something that is so easy and comfortable, and
Mm.
watching series after series or
Binging
show
on
after show
Netflix. Yeah,
is the easiest thing to do, and it gives us those dopamine reward, and
instantly.
it's the easiest way, and it's pleasurable.
Mm,
So, like, exchanging something that's easy and pleasurable for something that's
mm,
potentially uncomfortable,
mm.
is a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
So I think just perhaps giving some kind of direction to that and some kind of insight into what that could look like, so that we can start asking ourselves, oh, okay, so if I was going to choose to make space for those micro moments, what would I like them to look like? And what
Mm,
is, you know, sounds like, oh, that could actually be quite exciting,
mm.
even if it's
Agreed.
uncomfortable. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And even if you're listening and you're thinking, oh, and maybe your reality is you're having trouble sleeping, or you've got, you relate to those feelings of just feeling anxious and what have you that we've sort of reflected a little bit on
Yeah.
today. Join us. Let's sort of unpack a little bit more about, okay, what are, without being creating a list of, all the benefits or whatever, but why should we? Like, what is the science behind taking a moment? We've reflected a bit on it today, but
Mm.
there are so many benefits for it. And so I think you're right. This is a conversation that's going to take more than today. I think we wrap it up today. If you're interested, join us again next week because we're going to go deeper. We'll explore a bit further. Because my belief is, and I think I can say our belief is, that this is definitely an aspect of living brave, strong, and fulfilled.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's how I want to live every single day of my life. And so come join us. Let's learn some more. And on that note, too, if you want to be around more people who are on this journey of living brave, strong, and fulfilled, then join our membership. Come on in, surround yourself with great people because we know when we're surrounded by great people, it's going to speak life. So, love to
Yeah.
have you
I
on
love
board.
that.
Check the links below, and I think we'll wrap it up for today.
Good. And I look forward to talking more about this next week, Elle.
Brilliant. Thanks for the chat, Kath. Have a great rest of your day.
Cheers, Elle.